Hello, this is Bryan Cranston, Walter White on Breaking Bad, and also the director of this episode 301. Who else do we have?
I'm Skip MacDonald. I'm the editor from this episode.
And I'm Aaron Paul.
And Dave Porter, the composer for the series.
And in Albuquerque, we have...
Anna Gunn, who plays Skyler White.
And Mike Slovis, who's the director of photography.
Yeah.
Well, this is a very interesting episode. The beginning of our third season. In fact, when you hear 301, it means third season, first episode. This is out in a rural area of Albuquerque, New Mexico, where we shoot our show. And we found this deserted town. And the brilliance of our writing staff creating this interesting and compelling quandary of what are these people doing.
Also, Bryan, we ought to talk a little bit about the color, because one of the things that you and Vince and myself talked about was how do we open this season in a striking way that people will know that we're in for something exciting and something different.
Yeah.
Exactly. Now, we anticipated to have a very hot day. It was August, and so we anticipated it would be hot and there would be sweat, and instead we had rain. So a television schedule means you shoot regardless, and so we had to figure that out. And of course, Michael Slovis, who's brilliant as our director of photography, was able to give these shots that have minimal amounts of sun and make it look like a very hot day.
Oh.
What kind of
And
filters?
we had so much to. This is a straw filter over everything. We decided to go with this golden yellow for everything that happens in Mexico before they come across the border.
Mm-hmm.
And here comes...
And Bryan, we should talk about the fact that we had 3 units going on this day. We had so much to do.
Yeah.
3 units?
We had 3 units going on this day.
Our introduction to our cousins, Daniel and Luis.
A composer's dream, 2 actors that don't talk. leaving lots of airspace for music here. We had the luxury here. We use music very sparingly on the show, but when we do use it, we try to make the most of it. And for these guys, had the luxury of creating a palette of sounds that we could reintroduce with them throughout this season.
It's, oh God, the way the music builds up to it's just brilliant, I think. I love it.
That's so great.
Yeah, and the 2 characters that don't talk, they're great for the editor because you get to work with their faces and their looks and make them creepy and scary like they are.
Now, the ritual here that you're seeing, Santa Muerte, is a real thing. This is there are well over 1 million followers of this deity. And the uniqueness about this is that you may pray for someone to get well or to someone to fall ill. They make no judgment. And so that's what our cousins are doing here. They're praying to be guided toward finding a person that they want to eliminate walking the earth. And it happens to be that man.
Now, it could be also wishing good on people as well, right?
Yeah,
it's wishing good.
They make no judgment on it.
Oh,
so,
okay, right.
Yeah. Were you not listening? When
No,
I was saying?
I whenever you speak, Bryan, I kind of like tune out. And then I was trying to tune back in right when you're finishing, and so...
Amazing resemblance in that picture, by the way.
Yeah.
Dozens of reports of what appears to be a crashed aircraft, possibly 2 aircraft on
This episode, our first of the third season again, picks up just not too long after the end of our second season finale, which of course was the mid-air collision. Ashley Banfield happens to be a cousin of our executive producer, Michelle McLaren, and it was great to get her because it lent some credence to the severity of this, that it became more of a national and possibly international news.
Yeah, and we actually have a lot of surprise guests on this episode.
Yeah, that's right.
I can't wait to
My
see
real
them.
wife is right there.
Right there.
Hey!
That's my wife, Robin Dearden.
She's amazing.
And this was a real apartment fire that happened in Albuquerque, and so we got the footage from the station, and then we planted Robin in front of it so that it looks like it was part of the debris field.
Take place in a system with so many safeguards.
That the collision which brought down
My daughter Taylor is also in this episode, and she does a terrific job. You'll see her soon.
Oklahoma City today, as the FAA confirmed it was in.
And this sequence as an editor was a challenge because we had so much going on and we had to condense it down into a short period of time. So we did a lot of stuff with the overlapping and just to really make it chaotic kind of.
Yeah.
Margolis recently returned to work after a 5-week absence, which was due to.
It was necessary to have all these different angles on it because we needed to feel that it was bigger than just a local incident. It needed to have that scope.
Had a long history of substance abuse, and friends of the family say the death of his only child hit Margolis particularly hard. Coming as it did little more than a month before, many are questioning the timing of his return to work and are wondering how much blame truly lies with those who let this grieving father.
Now, in reminiscent to our pilot episode, we find Walt in the backyard.
You notice that book of matches is Saul Goodman's face. Better call Saul.
Saul good, man.
Saul Goodman.
Coming up here is a sequence that was a stunt, and it was difficult to pull together, primarily because it involves fire, and there are all kinds of regulations and restrictions that when dealing with fire and accidents that they have to be careful of. So if you notice on one of these takes that I have to wear actually fire protecting gloves that make my hand look like some kind of diseased gigantor. But
Gigantor.
if you'll look right coming up here, I'm wearing them now.
Yeah.
You can't really tell, not in this shot, but you can't tell. So, and then we have the explosion. So there's Saul.
I love it.
That's a great shot.
I'm wearing them now. The big fat hands.
Big fat hands.
Big fat hands. So here he was like, he feels so guilty and remorseful that he doesn't want to have anything to do with this dirty money. Then he realizes, what am I doing? This is crazy. So now I had fire protectant on my arm underneath the robe. And it kept on.
Did you have fire protectant tighty whities?
Yes, I did. Now, as I'm trying to get the fire out, I realized that the gloves were flopping over and I had to put them underwater so that the camera wouldn't see the floppy hands, because those gloves were kind of ruined in that sense.
Yep.
Usually open with "so sorry we're here."
But also at the very end with our big explosion, one of the cameras got burned up in the fire. So when the barbecue lights, we had stolen a piece from that camera to use it to ignite the fire because that didn't exist. So we used it there and also to start the fire at the end.
Here's one of our guest stars for the season, Julie Dretson, who is a terrific actor, and
Has he moved out?
her new lawyer.
We're in the process of moving him out. Yeah, today, hopefully. And in the meantime, my son and my daughter and I are staying with my sister.
So
One of how many kids that we've used in our show?
Yeah.
We keep changing out the children.
27, yes, 27.
We keep having to fire them.
Rotating
and that's
babies.
tough. That's tough when you have, please bring the baby in. It's just not working. You have to leave.
You're not producing what
Yeah.
we need.
Love the ribbons you guys all wore in this episode.
Yeah.
Wayfair 515.
Yeah.
Apparently even, parts of bodies. And so I certainly couldn't bring myself to.
so awful.
I know. Anyway, I was certainly.
Julie is the wife of one of our writers, and Sam, and we didn't know it I didn't know it at the time when I was looking at the audition tapes, and the biggest compliment I can give to her is that it didn't matter. I didn't know it, and she was the pick that we we chose, that we all unanimously said she has that right amount of professionalism and concern and compassion, and yet there's a reservedness to her that makes it really believable as an attorney.
She was really lovely to work with.
Maybe 15 years on it.
What about
And Skyler carefully choosing her words, trying not to say too much.
your husband's financial situation?
Now here's an example where you notice there is no music, and rightfully so. You know what I mean? But let me ask you a question, though, Dave. Do you look at this and you go, absolutely, no music should go here, or how do you do that?
Well, we're far enough along in this show that we've set the precedent that we don't do music in a scene like this. Maybe another show would.
You mean a private scene with two characters talking in it?
Well, almost never. And that's just something that works for our show. In part, we have the luxury of doing that because our actors and our writers are so excellent. Often you have to use music to help a scene that might not work as well as you might like, but that almost never happens here. Oh, I'm sorry, never happens here.
Nice catch.
Yeah, until one of the actors goes, "When did it happen?"
That was brilliantly staged. Whoever directed this episode did a really lovely job on that setup right there, to see Hank's reflection in it. You know, I must say that I enjoy directing, but I consider myself a neophyte to it. And when I get on set, I don't try to take over someone else's job. Basically, my working with Michael Slovis, he's helped me in numerous times. And basically, what I try to do is to just relay to Michael what my hope is, what kind of sentimentality at any given moment should be, and then he just goes to work and creates it for me, not only with the lighting but with tremendous assistance on placement of the camera. And it just you're a gem to work with, my friend.
Well, thanks, but that's what we talk about all the time when we work together, right? We talk about what's the story at this point.
Yeah.
What are we trying to say with this shot within this scene?
Yeah.
Bryan, this is your second directing episode for us, right? Did you have a different experience this time than the first time?
Yeah, it's always different. It's the 201 was my first, and then here, and the actors are well into their characters by now, and you don't really have to discuss character. They come in loaded for what they would do or what they wouldn't do. It's a lot of fun. It is a lot of work, I must say.
No heavy lifting. I got it. It's okay.
I'm impressed, though, Bryan, watching you, behind the monitor and watching the setup of something, and then switching hats and then putting yourself right into the scene. And
thank you.
Yeah.
I think in episodic, there's a tremendous advantage, Bryan, to knowing the show and knowing the culture of the show. Therefore, there's a shorthand in how you're going to tell the story. If you bring in a director that has never done the show before, there's a certain amount of education period that you have to go through. But since you know the show so well, we really pretty much go directly to where we have to be.
And I loved what you wore. Was it the first time you directed? Was it the first day that you had a monocle on? And
Oh my God!
like a whip.
I dressed up like Eric von Stroheim with a monocle and a cigarette holder. Yeah, it's fun just to kind of break. And I wanted this shot. I wanted the tears of our star here to be behind him. He's feeling this emotion of crying, and yet nothing's moving in his body, nothing's going on. He's trying to figure himself out. This is a nice little thing we were able to pull out.
You want another waffle?
It's actually a spa at what is now the Hard Rock Casino.
Yeah, where we shot the rehabilitation center. And the guest star, Jerry Burns, did a fantastic job there. Really believable work.
There's one of our sweet babies.
Pass along the correct contact information. I mean, you certainly can always reach me on my cell. I've always got.
Bryan, you should talk a little bit about the planning, because you only get the babies on the set for how long?
Yeah, we have. There's a tremendous restriction to working with babies, and 20 minutes at a time that they're allowed to be on the set, and then they must be taken away. So on shots like that, we time it out as carefully as possible, shoot the baby, and then put him down so that now, when we're shooting shots like this, the real baby is not even there. So we take advantage of that and those restrictions we have to do quickly.
And we might even have to wait a while. They might say, you can't do that other shot because we don't get a new baby for another 20 minutes or an hour or whatever.
Right. It does put some restrictions on us shooting, but, those laws are in place for very good reasons, and we abide by them, of course.
And the difference is amazing when you see the baby there.
Yeah, it really is. It gives a sense of reality to it. We have stand-in babies that are fake.
And they're very creepy.
Very creepy looking little things.
The peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
I love this. Cutting off the crust.
Now, as a director, Bryan, is it tough to direct yourself?
No, I always start out with a compliment. And that I'm doing great work. Keep it up. That the looks I'm getting from the rest of the cast is just jealousy. Right. Pay no attention to them. Actually, not as much. What's difficult is that obviously, as I'm acting there, I don't know the framing, if we got the dolly move correct, and so at the end of each take, I will look over to Michael and see what he felt, because Michael will be watching the monitors. And then my ADs will say, well, and if there's a scene with background, I'll say, how did the background look? Did that work? Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of questions that go on there, and I'll try to head it off in beginning before we shoot to say, this is what I'm looking for. This is what I hope to get.
We also run the shot with a stand-in so Bryan can watch it ahead of time.
Okay.
Now, all these people, all these kids, they came and did this for free, right? I mean,
Yeah, talk about that.
Okay, now, in a shot like that, we did it in several different takes. So what you're looking at now, where there's kids below and kids above, we did it in two different takes there, where we had about 450 extras, and we kept moving them around. This kid is a good actor. I like his work.
No, he's fun.
In that last shot, we did the above, anything where you have people moving in front of the people, we had them real, and then we would have moved everybody upstairs to increase the population
so there
of the gym.
That's a split screen right there.
Right there,
who it is.
split across the
And now
horizontally.
those are our daughters. That's my daughter, Taylor Cranston, and that's Tessa Slovis, Michael's daughter, next to her.
Oh.
God and all. Why does he allow all those innocent people to die for no reason?
Questioning Daddy.
Very
And
nice.
the Cranstons are so
And
good in
Carmen.
the scene.
Anyhow, haven't really been sleeping.
I remember at the read-through, Taylor read that did this. and
Yes.
I looked over at Bryan, and I was crying.
Yeah.
Oh,
It was
that's
really
sweet.
lovely.
She earned that role. I saw it when I first read the script, and but I wanted her to go through the experience of the audition, and so Sherry Rhodes put her through the audition. Our local casting director, who's unfortunately recently passed, but put her through the audition process, and it was fantastic.
Bryan, I remember that day very well, because that close-up of you was the shot that we almost left without.
Oh, is that?
If you remember, we
yes.
went through the entire day and said, there must be something we're missing.
Yes.
And
You're
this is the
absolutely
shot.
right. You're absolutely right.
Because, he has sea-doos, but...
This kid's so great.
They say, sea-doos.
A pair of legs buckled into them.
We were so focused on the crowd duplication and all of the other stuff. We're going, now how does this affect Walt?
Now,
oh my goodness.
That's Holly, Vincent Gilligan's main squeeze.
Nicely put. Very classy.
Man squeeze.
Holly, yeah, she's wonderful, and she did a terrific job there. She really did. Now we had our we didn't know how many teachers we were going to have, or actually, more importantly, we didn't know how many students we thought that maybe it would fill the gym floor, and when we realized we weren't going to do that, we pushed all the kids to the seats, and then just had the teachers there in the middle, and oh boy,
this is so great. Meltdown.
And at this point, Walt has been dealing with this tragedy for a couple weeks, and on his stage of loss, he's already moving past where the rest of them are still in the middle of this shock. And so he's trying to push past and think of the future. Look on the bright side.
Nobody on the ground was killed. And that, I mean, an incident.
Holly
like this
really is a teacher, is she not?
Yeah.
Yes.
Was.
Yeah, she was a teacher. Yeah.
Got to be some minor miracle. So, plus, neither plane was full.
Now we have a handful of paid background people, and we use them up. This guy was interesting looking, and then we had to break away and did shots of others who were all our volunteers. And the trick on this is that I didn't want to keep moving people. So it seems like we're shooting in both directions, one side and then the other. In reality, we were only shooting in one direction. And I would just move the people that were like the American flag in the background, the coach near the doors. We would move them to the other side and put the cafeteria workers there instead. So it looks like we're cutting from one side to the other.
Does anybody know how big a 747 is? I mean, it's...
And I would just rotate the teachers around. I just said, stay in your position, and we're just going to rotate around, follow me. And I would walk them around to the polar opposite of where I was standing before, and that would then indicate that we are shooting in a different direction.
People move.
Yeah, and doing the split, the empty seats up above and below, it really looks like a full house.
It does.
And it looks like you're shooting both sides.
Terrific
and you've
job.
got thousands of people in there, or hundreds of them.
Yes, Skip, you anticipated a lot of work with that, and it turned out to be not so much, right?
No, it came out really well. It was very simple to put those two pieces together, which was nice, because a lot of times you do have a lot of problems with those, with the movement of the camera and the placement, but it went together seamlessly.
You're welcome.
Yes, thank you, Michael.
And this is what Bryan and I were talking about, so that the minute you cut to it and you see that color, you know you're back there with these guys.
You're in a different country, yeah. Uh-oh.
And one of the cousins, isn't this their first time acting?
Yes.
Yeah.
The one is in the passenger seat right now. That's Danny, and he's never acted before, and that's his real brother, Louis. And they were just terrific guys, and came with a great attitude and a point of view, and we embraced them, and they became part of our family for the season. And I think the show was enriched because of that.
Another great opportunity to bring back the music here for our cousins and showcase them a bit here. Obviously, they're enormously important players this season. And as I often do, we used both organic and electronic sounds in the score that we write for Breaking Bad. And here we got to use a lot of really interesting stuff. I wanted to try to capture also this instant sensation of being somewhere different, in this case in Mexico, and we used a big variety of percussion and some really big drums that are native to Mexico, and also some, you'll hear a little bit later on, some Aztec war whistles, which is kind of a very shrill, piercing sound that we use very effectively. It's hard to listen to, actually, in the room, but it does wonderful for them.
Cute little girl. Wondering. They know they're bad. Doop. Now, I mean, this is to open up the third season. What the heck is going on?
Right.
Who are these guys? What is now? They're getting rid of their car. They're getting rid of their. What is happening? You'll have to wait and find out. The first scene with R.J. Mitte for the season, and there's the broken windshield that was.
Fine, I guess.
You make sure you say hello to her for me, will you?
Why don't you just come inside? It's your house.
No. And sometimes I did like this, and I sort of wanted to just let them have their private moment, so I didn't want to come around. I wanted to stay in back of them and just, I didn't need to see the full frontal of each actor. Just stay in the back. And then there's a nice little shot up here where Walt is contemplating his life as a father and how his son feels about him, the disappointment in his son's eyes and face, and Walt feeling like a failure.
He's gone. Hey, Flynn! How's tricks?
How's what?
Tricks. It's an expression.
That's what?
Why you gotta treat him like this? Why you gotta be like this? Why can't you just talk even?
Hey, cool down. Okay. Okay.
Out of the mouths of babes, huh?
What I love about this is that it's so real when you have a child who is accusing the parent of something, and the child just doesn't have the full understanding of what's going on, and Skyler has to take the brunt of this.
Could have gone so wrong.
Yes,
that my
she
mother
does.
Tell me what it is that Walt did.
You know what? I don't.
Always love the
love their
dynamic
relationship.
between. Yeah, I was just gonna
I
say.
love these two.
Yeah, me too.
You want to be supportive. You could be supportive.
You can learn so much from them, both just watching the two of them together.
Okay, well, crime's a strong word, but I don't.
It's usually we see Walt in that position
that-
right there.
Yeah.
Voice inside your head. It's that sneaky rat bastard.
Twilight Hour.
7 voice.
Beautiful shot, Michael.
Talking about that voice.
Remember waiting for that? We
Yeah.
sat around
We
waiting.
sat around waiting for that because I didn't want to.
For just the right moment, yes.
Be what, president of the United
And we thought we did it because we thought that the Kiva would look especially beautiful when you see the shape of it outlined against the dark blue sky.
It does. It's gorgeous.
And then this we shot when it was full night.
Yeah.
Are you good enough to be okay with who and what you are? I say yes. It doesn't matter what I say. It's
Yeah.
your voice, which means you're the only one that hears it, which means you're the only one that can fight it.
And remember those sparks, Bryan, that was incredibly important. And we did all kinds of tests to get those sparks to be
I
just
know.
perfect.
And that's the thing that a lot of people may not understand is that when you are in production, it is an extremely costly endeavor, and you can't afford to hope that something you think should work works. So if you have any question whatsoever, run a test. Run a test. Let's see how it works. Let's see what happens, so that on the day when we need those sparks, boom, they happen. And there's numerous tests on things.
And this being such an auteur piece, everything is important, so everything gets tested ahead of time.
Yeah.
And what kind of test do you run? Do you have a fire and you poke at it to?
Yeah, because when I poked at it, who was it? Didn't
They
someone
threw something in there, didn't they,
threw
Aaron?
something
Yeah.
in there to make the sparks really fly up.
Off camera, they're tossing something in at that moment. Yeah.
And the reason is, from a storytelling point of view, we never know what's going to be important a season from now or 4 episodes from now or, in the future, because things that we think are just small little tidbits reemerge a year, season later, or even 2 seasons later as very important.
For instance, Jerry Burns reprises his role later on this season, and so planting him here was important for Jesse's storyline, but also it becomes important later on for the ongoing story.
So, I'm arguing with my wife.
Now, when I was auditioning for this, I'm sorry, Anna?
No, I was just saying, every time I hear this story, I've seen this episode quite a few times, it just...
He's wonderful.
Yeah. What I loved about Jerry's audition piece was that you really felt the years have passed. So there was a certain amount of distance between the incident and now, and a lot of actors on the audition were still filled with that emotion as if it were still so ripe. And what I wanted to see from this character was the scarring effect of the story, not the emotion necessarily, but that he was so deeply wounded, and it's still there. He'll never forget that, but that you felt it was a scar and not an open wound.
Yeah, and it sure came across that way.
Yeah.
It accomplishes nothing. It just stands in the way.
And it's extremely important because of the impact on Jesse. I mean, it's everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
True change.
I love the way you could see the heat there in front of him.
Yeah.
From the fire.
From the fire, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not even sure we had a real fire at that point.
Yeah.
That's all created.
Yeah. The eyeball view, the POI.
Yes. Bryan and I worked a long time on that shot.
And so it's stuff like this. You take the bed out, and what looks like the top of the bed is actually just a little topper, a little skirt or something to appear as if it's a bed.
And if you notice, the eyeball is also turned about 90 degrees so that you can see it in both directions.
This scene was the big shocker for me when I read it. The opening scene of season 3, or the opening episode, and Skyler finds out what I'm doing.
I know, I went, whoa.
Yeah.
Do you want to start?
Anna, you want to talk about this scene? What you were emotionally were you from it?
Well, the first thing I was going to say was this scene, watching you, as I said before, put on the director hat and watch the setups in the monitor and watch your stand-in, and then come back into it and put yourself into the scene, and then we would do it. And I remember after cutting one time, I mean, we were acting, and then you said cut, which made me go, whoa. and then you looked at me and said, what did you think? I thought, and we sort of talked about it a little bit because, I was impressed with how you were absolutely present and absolutely immersed in the scene, but you also had to maintain a little bit of objectivity and seeing it from the directorial standpoint. But you relied a lot on Michael for that as well, I think. Yeah.
And guys, I mean, and Skip and everybody really involved, this is something that our show does extremely well, is 2 people in a very emotional scene sitting at a table, but yet it's extremely interesting, where in his other stories, it may not work as well.
Entire side.
Well, yeah, and Bryan and I, we talked about the scene a lot, and the layers and the levels and where certain things happen, and we explored it, I think, pretty fully, didn't we, Bryan, in conversation? But then we allow ourselves to kind of go where we go with it, and
I think this is when you realize that your educated guess of I'm a drug dealer. You can see through me now, and you realize.
How else could you possibly make that kind of money?
Woo!
I loved that moment because I say it. We talked about that a lot. You're a drug dealer, and whether it was how much she really knew that inside,
Right.
and how much she was actually saying it to see what he would say or do.
It's kind of a semi-bluff, and
Yeah.
it worked.
Yeah.
That's the brilliant nuances of the writing on this show, is that we don't come out and say what we're doing. You feel it. It's visceral. Along with the really truly the aid of the music and the editing, the careful, delicate nature of it.
Per se, it doesn't mean.
He's tapped out. Dad's, I'm not a drug dealer per se.
There are a lot of angles to this. Okay, it's complicated. All right, so please let's just sit back down and we'll talk it through.
I'm gonna make you a deal, Walt. I won't tell Hank, and I won't tell your children, or anybody else. Nobody will hear it from me, but only if you grant me this divorce and stay out of our lives.
And a lot of times with the editing style on the show, we stay in shots for an awful long time. We're not always cutting back and forth to be on people for what they're saying, and it's very effective.
I think it's also courageous because the impulse is to be on the person who's speaking, and that's not always where the most accurate point of view is at the time.
Right.
Very good.
Hi, Jesse.
Walt's apartment was a set on our stage. This, of course, is back at the Isleta Casino, Hard Rock now.
Reunited at last.
Yeah. Yeah, we've been away from each other for a while.
Your windshield's broken.
Yeah.
I love that.
There was more to that scene that was cut out.
Yeah.
And was it because of time, or was that,
It was because of time. A lot of it was.
To me, it's always interesting, too. It's like, obviously, the writers don't write something that is superfluous to a scene. So how do you cover yourself? If you have to cut something out, obviously the information that was coming out was there for a reason. I mean,
Yeah, it's a real tough decision on what to cut out. That's why we get with the writers and Vince and sit down and try to figure out what's going to be the best to take out that doesn't affect the story. And it's a long process. It's hard to get time out of these shows because everything means something.
Yeah,
That's excellent. That's very good, Jesse. Boy.
in this, I was, at first, I didn't know where to put the blocking in this. And then I realized they're too uncomfortable with each other. I don't even want them to move until a certain point. They're uncomfortably standing at the end, so they're actually in the room, but not really, you're really using the room.
Our lives back together again. And on the street.
And I tell him that's where he's going to sleep, so he takes it.
You been following this airplane crash?
Aaron, this is really terrific work. I mean, you take on a different feeling than I've ever seen Jesse have in the run of the show so far, and there's some kind of calm acceptance.
Yeah.
Any way, shape, or form.
I mean, he's just had so much guilt on his shoulders for so long.
Probably far more than you are. And there are many factors at play there.
Yeah.
You know, two characters. One character's trying to rid himself of any guilt and responsibility, Walt, and Jesse, who's accepting it. I am who I am.
The system is run on 1960s technology.
I love this line.
I blame the government.
You either run from things or you face them, Mr. White.
What exactly does that mean?
I learned it in rehab. It's all about accepting who you really are. I accept who I am.
And who are you?
I'm the bad guy. And that line rings true at the end of this season.
It does. It really does. And that was no accident.
No.
You know, to plant that in the very first episode and have that come to fruition at the end.
Yep.
Giancarlo Esposito, first scene for him.
It's good to see you again. Meth?
I like this shot because I like the idea from that profile angle of the bent wood chair. The bars seem like jail bars to me for some reason. And it's just like it had that image of these men talking surreptitiously in a jailhouse.
It's so crazy that the character Giancarlo plays in this show is just this quiet, just evilness about him. But I worked with him years ago where he played the most humble, sweet man that I ended up killing. And but it's just so crazy to see how he can transform into such different characters.
Mm-hmm.
That shot.
Yeah.
In my life is what it is, and I'm at something of a crossroads.
And how Walt comes back and uses your line with him to justify his position.
I am not a criminal.
And then, oops.
No offense.
Uh-oh.
This is not me.
I'd like you to hear my offer, notwithstanding.
He betrays very little.
Yeah. Yes.
$3 million for 3 months of your time.
What? Everyone has a price.
Then out.
$3 million.
May I take this as
Yeah, and Giancarlo doesn't give anything away. I mean, he gives little glints of things, but nothing.
Yeah. What is that word? He's inscrutable. Tease. Vince Gilligan loves that word, and it says a lot because our show dishes out bits of information very carefully,
very carefully,
and so we, especially for his character.
It's so interesting. I'm sorry to watch his mouth when he smiles in this way, and then his mouth will turn down, and when it does, it makes me nervous.
Yeah, yeah, it does, and
just slightly, but I go ooh.
This scene, also in that straw, right, Michael? Mm-hmm. And also still in Mexico, and. We shot this right outside our stages, our studio in Albuquerque. And then this was shot on the stage. We just brought some hay bales in there. And
that piece actually was on that trailer. We built a trailer for that one shot.
Yeah.
And these guys are sitting against 6 bales of hay or so.
Yeah.
And we're driving along on Bobby Foster Road.
Yeah. And now we see our
Now we're in the studio.
Now in the studio.
Pero esta vez tengo una chamba que me espera, ¿eh? Mi primo tiene un taller de pintura de auto. Para pintar, nadie me gana. Ya, por eso me dicen aceitón.
Do you guys bounce them up and down?
Yeah.
The studio to
we have
them being in the truck.
We have grips. Our grip brothers will give a little shake to the gimbal it a little bit and get some natural shaking going.
And it's also the lights.
It was built on inflatable tire tubes. It was sitting on tire tubes, the set.
Really?
And they're bouncing it around. And we were shaking the camera.
So all you have to do is shake it just a little bit, and gives that feeling that you're actually in a moving vehicle.
I love this, him noticing the boots
and then
completely changing.
Whoops. Yeah. And then the cousins go, uh-oh, we were made. So the guy who would not stop talking now, it's like,
It's too bad that kid saw those boots.
Yeah.
that color, the filter, Michael, is so. The color is. I find it menace. I mean, it's unsettling.
Yeah, that's a good point.
We did a lot of looking at colors.
Did you?
And also on a TV show, you may not actually color the film. You might leave it till later. You might do it digitally, but we don't do that. We committed to the color, and there was no one doing it once we shot.
Oh, you're not going to go anywhere.
He should have just played dead.
Yeah.
That was a mistake.
What was he thinking? But it's beautiful. It looks like, I mean, look at that.
I love that shot.
It's a great one. And how far away were you with the camera?
Oh, we were quite a bit. Quite a bit away.
You're going to see right now. There you go.
Yeah. No, but I mean, it's
quite a bit away.
Great vista.
And you could have played a lot of the scene from that. But then we had this, and that was a test too. We had to test that, and it didn't actually work as we tested it, but it worked enough to be believable. And that the gasoline was losing its containment. Now, Danny doesn't smoke.
Here's a great example of a big Hollywood scene that we actually choose not to use a big Hollywood music for.
Yes.
Boom. This we did in slow motion.
Yeah. And this is where we added the fire from the burned camera right in there.
Oh, cool.
Very good point.
Nice.
Here it is.
Now, you told him not to flinch.
Yeah. Boom.
Look at that.
Yeah, Bryan, you should talk about, because this is his first day on a film set, and then this happens.
So this is what happens.
You saw Danny just take a drag of a cigarette. I said, to make sure that you are completely at ease and at rest when these guys walk away, if you think of it, just take a drag of your cigarette again. And this explosion just, was incredible. It was an enormous undertaking. Of course, several different tests we did on that, and the guys did a wonderful job. And it got our third season off with a bang.
Yeah, and when that explosion went, there were shoes and things flying past those guys.
Past them that were burning. Yeah, exactly.
Those of you who stick around for the credits will notice we do different iteration of our Breaking Bad theme every week that relates to the episode. Here we had the Cousins theme.
Well done, everybody.
Nicely done. Thank you for joining us.
Tuning in.
See you next time.